All right, unlike authoritarian regimes, which can create order just under threat of force, constitutional democracies, such as the United States aspires to be, require civic virtues on the parts of its citizens. And today I think that we are under threat as a democracy. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that are undermining our civic culture. However, I think that you can see some of the civic virtues that are required for us in the First Amendment itself. First of all, we need to be able to speak with others, freedom of speech. We need to be able to use the press to hopefully make rational arguments to one another. We need to be able to come together, to assemble, to discuss problems, and to come up with solutions that we will then go to the government and recommend. This is self-government in practice. However, today we see declining civic knowledge. This is the first crisis that we confront. We see it with what are known as NAEP scores. If you just look at the most recent scores of 8th graders on civics and history, you can just quickly see that they don't know a whole lot about American civics or history. It's very alarming and it's very dispiriting. You might think, well, college is better. I will bring some bad news to you. A survey from a few years ago found that 10% of college graduates thought that Judge Judy Scheindlin was on the Supreme Court. That's Judge Judy for you. But so college students don't do much better. So we're failing in higher education as well. The general public also just doesn't know much about American politics. So the percentage of Americans who can actually identify all three branches of government varies between 25 to 50%. I would regard this as alarmingly low as well. So this leads to this question, can we actually have a constitutional conversation today in America, which I think is really the most important kind of conversation that we could have. Think about the Lincoln-Douglas debates. They were discussing some important things. Do Americans actually possess a common vocabulary where we could engage in this kind of sustained, meaningful debate? I'm not certain that we can. So this then leads to what I regard as the second problem, negative partisanship. And negative partisanship is when voters don't vote for a party because they really like the party that they support, because they really hate the other party. They think the other party is uniquely wicked. And it turns out that negative partisans are willing to do all sorts of things to maintain power, including undermine democratic norms. I find this dangerously having echoes of Carl Schmitt, the Nazi legal theorist, who reduced politics to what he called the friend-enemy distinction. And we see an increasing rise of negative partisanship, which I think, again, looks like this friend-enemy distinction in politics, and a pluralistic democracy should be able to rise above this. This leads to the third crisis, which is a decline of social capital. Familiar with Robert Putnam? He is the one who gave the best articulation of this in Bowling Alone. It just turns out that people have reduced ability to come together to solve problems with each other. Citizens, this social capital is in decline. So where maybe some of the reasons we might see this today, TikTok. I mean, you see some of what's going on TikTok. You see, particularly younger kids. It's just a constant feed of these videos. I'm not certain that that's going to be breeding the kind of social capital that we need to sustain ourselves as a democracy. You can also see it in just turnout in local elections. I will refer you to an excellent article by my colleague Bill Lyons, sitting in the back here, that just documented the astonishing decline in participation in mayoral elections over the past 5 decades here in Knoxville, which also represents this. So you see a decline in participation in politics at the local level. So the Institute of American Civics, we're trying to address these problems here by improving civic knowledge, by combating negative partisanship, and by doing things that will hopefully breed social capital among our students when they go out. So we're going to do this in a few ways. First of all, through courses. So one of the things that we're going to try to do is have courses where debate over contentious topics will be at the core of them, but students can actually engage with each other in a respectful way, such as a course that might make the 1619 Project and critics of it from both the left and the right central to the readings. We are also going to hold events that are going to try to improve civic knowledge. So recently we had Danielle Allen of Harvard University. She was also, PBS was here, Judy Woodruff. You can go watch the story about Danielle Allen's lecture here on the Declaration of Independence. Fantastic lecture. I recommend the story to you. We also will support other things like events such as a recent play. Misty Anderson, I put this on, fantastic production. She was here earlier. I hope she's still here. If you want to know why this play matters, you can go ask her. But it was a wonderful, wonderful production of a play that was extremely important in American history, raises basic questions about the meaning of liberty. We are also going to try to reach out to teachers through seminars. So for instance, this past summer, we had a civics academy, had around 50 teachers from around the state, where they came and they learned about the meaning of freedom of speech in constitutional law, the meaning of due process, the relationship between economics and the Constitution, some basic core subjects that are essential for them to know to be effective in the classroom. One other thing that we did, though, is we had panels of teachers where they could discuss with each other how they could deal with contentious topics in their own classrooms. And this was extraordinarily valuable for them. It was just a relief for them to realize that others were going through the same thing and talk about good strategies for trying to build, again, this ability in their own students to deal with contentious topics. We also support other things like Leadership Knoxville. We had Michelle Moody Adams of Columbia University came and gave a talk about the importance of civics and reviving civics and citizenship in our culture. Over 1,000 people from the Knoxville area were at this event, supporting again next year. Of course, we also, in the Baker School, we have the You Might Be Right podcast based on a quote from Senator Baker, which was that the other fellow might be right. So you might be right. And of course, we have a Democratic governor, former Democratic governor, former Republican governor who co-hosts this podcast. So in conclusion, we want to create citizens who will resemble Howard Baker, a man of principle who put principle above his own personal interest, above his own partisan interest. So we want to create citizens like that, as well as citizens who know that Judge Judy is not on the Supreme Court.